remember the exact moment I said it. We were crammed into Jess's apartment. 6 of us on 2 small couches, wine glasses everywhere, music too loud for the space. The kind of night where everything feels funnier than it actually is. Someone, I think it was Priya, leaned over and said, "So what's the deal with you and Ethan? You guys serious?" I didn't even pause. "Ethan," I laughed, swirling my glass. "He's a placeholder. I'm keeping my options open until something better comes along." The room exploded. Jess nearly spit out her drink. "Maya, you are terrible," she said, wiping her chin and grinning. "I'm honest," I said. "There's a difference." More laughter. I felt it. That warm, electric feeling of being the most interesting person in the room. The girl who couldn't be tied down. The girl with options and the confidence to say so out loud. I didn't hear the hallway door. I didn't hear footsteps stop. What I found out later, much later, was that Ethan had come early. He knew I'd be at Jess's and wanted to surprise me. He'd picked up food from my favorite Thai place, the one on 5th that does the lemongrass soup I always ordered on cold nights. He was carrying it in a brown paper bag, probably smiling to himself the way he always did when he thought he was doing something sweet. He heard everything. He didn't knock. He didn't walk in. He didn't call my name or make a sound. He set the bag down on the floor outside the door, turned around, and left. I found out about the bag the next morning. Jess's neighbor mentioned it when she came to return a key. There was a takeout bag in the hall all night. Figured someone left it. I stood there staring at her, and something cold moved through my chest. But I pushed it away. I told myself it was nothing. That's the thing about the worst moments of your life. They never feel like the worst moments while you're in them. I said those words like they were nothing, because to me, in that moment, they were. That's the part that haunts me most. Let me tell you about Ethan Cole. Not the version I invented in my head. The too quiet, too easy version I used to dismiss. The real one. The one I only understood after I'd already lost him. He learned I hated cilantro on our 3rd date and never ordered anything with it again. Not once. No announcement, no reminder needed. He just remembered. He memorized my mother's birthday. Not because I told him to, but because he heard me mention it once and filed it away like it mattered. He never raised his voice. Not in 14 months. Not once. "You're lucky," Jess told me once. "He never gives you anything to fight about." "That's the problem," I said. She tilted her head. "How is that a problem?" "It's boring, Jess. A man who never pushes back, never gets jealous, never makes you feel like you have to earn him." "What does that say about him?" She didn't answer. I thought I'd made a smart point. I hadn't. The truth was, I didn't know what to do with someone who just loved me without making it a competition. My mother's voice lived in the back of my head, from a conversation we'd had when I was 19. I'd told her about a boy who brought me flowers every week, and she'd said, almost bored, "Men who are too kind will bore you, Maya. Find someone with fire." I never questioned that. I swallowed it whole. So when Daniel Park started texting me, my coworker, charming and loud, and always the center of something, I told myself it was just friendly. Daniel had fire. Daniel had opinions. Daniel never let a room forget he was in it. Ethan let rooms forget about him all the time. He never needed to be noticed. I didn't understand yet that there's a difference between a man who performs for attention and a man who's secure enough not to need it. He never made me feel like I was winning him, I said to myself, lying in bed one night with my phone in my hand, a text from Daniel glowing on the screen. And I was stupid enough to think that meant he wasn't worth having. I woke up to nothing. No good morning text. No coffee cup emoji. No, "Did you get home okay" message waiting for me. Just a blank screen and the quiet feeling that something had shifted overnight. I told myself he was busy. I texted him first, casual, like nothing had happened. "Hey, morning. You good?" No reply. By noon, I texted again. "Ethan, you okay?" Still nothing. I called once. It rang 5 times and went to voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message. By evening, I had convinced myself he was being dramatic. Men who don't argue, I decided, find other ways to punish you. I drove to his apartment. He answered the door, and I saw it immediately. The change. Not in his face, exactly. More like behind it. 14 months, and I knew every version of Ethan's eyes. The tired version, the happy version, the version that lit up when I walked into a room. This version was none of those. "Hey," he said. Just that. "Hey?" I tried to laugh. "That's all I get? I've been texting you all day, Ethan." "I know." "So what's going on? Why are you acting like this?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I think we both know you've outgrown this, Maya." Go find what you're looking for. What? That's... You're being ridiculous. I said one stupid thing at a party. You said what you meant, he said. That's not the same as being stupid. Ethan, come on, let me in. We can talk about this. He didn't move back from the door. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He said, "There's nothing left to say. I'm not angry at you. I just think this is where it ends." Behind him, I saw Clara, his sister, cross the hallway. She glanced at me once. Not with hatred, with something quieter than that. Something that looked almost like pity. She disappeared into the kitchen without a word. "Ethan, please." He stepped back, and then, very gently, he closed the door. Not a slam, not a bang, just a soft, final click that landed in my chest like something breaking in slow motion. I stood in the hallway for a long time. I had come ready for a fight and had no idea what to do with his grace. I had expected a fight. I had prepared for tears. But his silence? I had no weapon against that. I called Daniel that same night. He answered on the second ring. "Maya, what a nice surprise." "Are you free?" I asked. "For you?" "Always." 3 hours later, we were at a rooftop bar I couldn't afford, and I was telling myself this was exactly what I needed. Daniel was everything I had claimed to want. Loud, magnetic, the kind of man who flagged down waiters with confidence and made everyone at the table feel like they were part of something exciting. "You seem distracted," he said, watching me over his glass. "I'm fine. Just a long week." "Tell me about it." So I started to. I said I'd just gotten out of something, that I was ready for something new. But before I could say more, he leaned in and said, "You know what you need? Stop overthinking. Just be here." And he smiled, and it was charming, and I let it be enough. But by the third week, cracks were showing. He canceled on me twice. Once with a text that just said "can't make it" and no explanation. When I brought it up, he said, "I'm a busy guy, Maya, you knew that." One night I told him I'd had a rough day. He nodded and then said, "That reminds me, I hit a new max at the gym today. 220 on bench press. Insane, right?" I smiled. I laughed. I performed. Jess loved him. "He's so much more exciting than Ethan," she said. "He's an upgrade, honestly." Then one night his friend Ryan showed up, a quiet guy, awkward around me in a way I couldn't explain. He had one too many drinks and leaned over while Daniel was in the bathroom and said, "You know he's got a girl back home, right? He does this everywhere he goes." "What?" I said. I figured someone should tell you." Daniel came back and Ryan shut up, and I pretended I hadn't heard it. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I had traded a man who saw me for a man who wanted an audience. And the worst part? I had made the trade willingly. I found it by accident. My phone kept freezing, storage full, and I was deleting old files when I saw it. A voicemail. Ethan's name. Timestamped the night of Jess's party. 11:47 p.m., 1 hour after he walked away from that hallway. My hands were shaking as I pressed play. I sat down on the edge of my bed, and then somehow I was on the bathroom floor, back against the tub, and his voice was filling the small room. "Hey, Maya, I'm not calling to make this hard. I wanted to say something, and I knew if I said it to your face, you'd talk me out of it or I'd lose my nerve." A breath. "I don't want you to feel guilty. I know you meant what you said. And I think part of me always knew I wasn't what you were looking for. I'm not angry. I'm really not. I just want you to find someone who makes you feel like you don't need a backup plan. You deserve that." A pause. Then, quietly, "So do I." That was the end of the message. I sat there on the cold tile floor and didn't move for 40 minutes. There were no tears at first. The pain was too precise for that, too clean. It moved through me like a current, not a storm. When I finally cried, it wasn't about losing him. It was about something uglier, the version of myself who had heard nothing in his patience, who had mistaken his grace for weakness, who had laughed at a party while he stood in a hallway holding food he'd bought for me. The next day I went to see Professor Webb. I didn't tell her everything. I told her enough. She listened. Then she took off her glasses, set them on her desk, and said, "Can I say something that might sting?" "Sure," I said. "The people who leave quietly are usually the ones who loved you the loudest." I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. He didn't leave a wound. He left a mirror, and I hated what I saw in it. Daniel and I didn't end in a fight. That would have been too clean. He just faded. Texts got shorter. Replies got slower. The rooftop bars stopped. One night, I texted him, and the message sat unread until morning. I thought about Ryan's words, and this time, I didn't push them away. I found Ryan through a mutual contact. We met for coffee, awkward, brief, but honest. He held his cup with both hands and said, "I probably shouldn't have said anything." "But you did," I said, "so finish it." He sighed. "There's a girl. Has been for 2 years. Daniel does this. He finds someone new in every city he's in. It's not personal. You were the next one." I nodded. I didn't cry. I wasn't even angry at Daniel. That was the strange part. The betrayal I felt wasn't about him at all. That evening I met Jess for dinner. She was already in the middle of a story about someone else when I sat down. She talked for 20 minutes straight before asking how I was. "Not great, honestly," I said. "Oh no, what happened?" "Daniel, it's over." She made a sympathetic sound, then said, "Okay, but get back out there fast, you know? You can't sit in it." "Oh, did I tell you about Marcus from my office?" I looked at her across the table, really looked, and I thought, she has never once asked me what I actually want, not once in 6 years. She encouraged the performance. She never asked to see what was underneath it. I thought Daniel was the mistake, but Daniel was just the consequence. The mistake had a name, and it was me. It was a Thursday when I heard about Ethan. A mutual friend, Priya, from that same night at Jess's party, mentioned him casually over lunch. "Have you heard? Ethan got promoted. He seems really good, actually, like, genuinely good." "That's great," I said. My voice came out normal. My chest did not feel normal. "He's been spending time with someone, Sophie, I think. She works with him. Everyone says she's really lovely." "Great," I said again. 3 days later, Clara sent me a photo. No message, just the photo. Ethan was at what looked like an outdoor dinner. String lights, people laughing around him. He was mid-laugh, head back, completely unguarded. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not because it hurt to see him happy, because I couldn't remember the last time I saw him laugh like that with me. Maybe he had. Maybe I'd been too busy performing my own role to notice. A week after the photo, Clara called me. I almost didn't answer. "Clara." "Maya." A pause. "I'm not calling to make you feel bad." "Okay. He's doing well. I wanted you to know that." "Why are you telling me?" "Because," she said, "you looked at him like he was small for a long time. I think you needed to hear that he's not." I swallowed. "You're right. He's not. He forgave you a long time ago, Maya. The question is whether you're going to forgive yourself." She hung up first. I sat with the phone in my hand and nothing left to defend myself with. I wanted him to be broken, not out of cruelty, but because his wholeness meant the loss was only mine. "Ethan, I'm not writing this to ask for anything. I don't want you back, not because I don't care, but because I know the version of me you knew didn't deserve you, and I'm not sure the current version has earned the right to say otherwise. I was scared of you. That's the honest part. Not of anything you did, but of how calm you made me feel. I grew up thinking love had to hurt a little to be real. That safety was just another word for settling. I told myself you were too easy to love, and I mistook that for a flaw. You were never boring. I was just too busy running from stillness to see that. I confused your patience for weakness. I confused your kindness for desperation. I let other people's voices tell me what to want, and I let the worst parts of myself take the wheel. I'm sorry, not because I want forgiveness, because it's true, and I've spent too long saying things that weren't. Maya. I folded the letter, put it in an envelope, wrote his name on the front, and put it in my desk drawer. It's still there. That same night, my mother called. We talked about small things for a while. Her garden, a neighbor's new dog. Then, without planning it, I said, "Mom, you always told me that kind men were boring." Silence. "I'm not trying to start a fight," I said. "I just need you to know that it wasn't true, and I think part of me built my whole life around that one sentence." She was quiet for a long moment. Then softly, her voice smaller than I had ever heard it, she said, "Maybe I was wrong about that." 4 words. But they cracked something open between us that had been sealed for years. The letter was never for him. It was for me. The version of me that needed to finally tell the truth, even if no one ever heard it. 6 months passed. I stopped going to parties where I needed to perform. I let the distance with Jess grow without rushing to close it. There was no dramatic ending between us, just 2 people who had outgrown the same dynamic at different speeds. I poured myself into work, not as a distraction, as a foundation. I started showing up differently, quieter, more certain. Professor Webb noticed. She called me into her office one afternoon and said, I want to recommend you for the leadership development program." "Me?" I said. "You've changed," she said simply. "A few months ago, you were the smartest person in every room and you made sure everyone knew it. Now you're the smartest person in the room and you're actually listening to other people." I didn't know what to say. She leaned forward. "You've stopped performing, Maya. That's when real life begins." I didn't meet anyone new. I didn't look for anyone. The story I used to tell myself, that I needed someone exciting, someone who made rooms turn, felt like a costume I'd finally taken off. Underneath it, I was just a woman learning what she actually wanted. Then, one morning, I walked into a coffee shop and he was there. Ethan. At a corner table, laptop open, a half-finished cup beside him. He looked up, our eyes met. He gave me a small smile, real, uncomplicated, with nothing in it except acknowledgement. I smiled back. I raised one hand, a small wave. He nodded once. That was it. No conversation, no closure speech, no dramatic moment. Just two people who had loved each other, carrying their separate lives in the same direction. He smiled at me like someone who had healed. I smiled back like someone who was learning to. I still think about that brown paper bag sometimes. Sitting outside Jess's door all night, cooling in the hallway while I laughed inside, all that lemongrass soup untouched, all that quiet love unnoticed. That's what gets me. Not the ending, not the voicemail, not even the photo of him laughing with someone else. It's the image of him setting that bag down, carefully so it wouldn't tip, and walking away without making a sound. That's who he was. That's who I didn't see. If I could go back, I wouldn't beg him to stay. I'd just be less afraid. I'd stop mistaking someone's steadiness for smallness. I'd let myself be loved without turning it into a test. But I can't go back. None of us can. And maybe that's the point. The most important lessons in your life will not announce themselves. They won't come with warnings or flashing lights. They'll come as a soft click of a closing door, an old voicemail found by accident, a photo sent without a caption. They'll come quietly. And you'll only understand them when the noise finally stops. I'm not fixed. I want to be honest about that. I'm not the person who learned her lesson and lived happily ever after. I'm the person who is still learning, who catches herself some mornings about to make the same old performance and chooses differently. That's enough. For now, it's enough. So if you're reading this and you recognize yourself in my story, in the careless words, in the restless chasing, in the way you sometimes look past the people who love you most, I want you to hear this. Quiet love is not small love. It's the kind that remembers your order, learns your mother's birthday, shows up with Thai food on a cold night without being asked. It's the kind that walks away with dignity when you break it, and leaves no wounds, only mirrors. And that silence? It will follow you longer than any fight ever could.